remember to stay hydrated, even when you're inside. Okay, let's get started. I can see your beautiful faces, if possible. Marissa's not here. I don't see Amanda. Kay is here. Manuel, I do not see. Aya is here. Arden, don't see.
Yes, I is here.
Yeah, Aya's here. I got you.
Okay.
Usma? Usma's here. Looks like you're on campus too, huh? Aiden is here. Don't see Raquel. Oh, Manuel is here. Do you go by Manuel or Mandy?
Whichever one you prefer.
I'm gonna leave it up to me.
I'll go by Mandy then.
Huh?
Mandy's fine then.
Oh, okay. Hannah, I do not see Hannah. I do see Mandy. Mandy is here. Erica is here, and Evelyn is here. Okay, it looks like Amanda just entered.
Recording in progress.
Amanda here. Okay. So before we get into the content, I promised you guys that we would do the very last icebreaker that I had planned. So we will do that now. We didn't do that. I just want to check with you, which was the instructor quiz. The quiz about me. No, right? Okay. And once we finish that, we'll get into the content. Let me pull it up. Okay, get a piece of paper and pen or pencil, please. Just grab anything. Okay, so this is a kind of, I got to know you guys when we went around the other day and talked about yourself. So this is going to be a quiz for you to get to know me, and we'll see who gets the most answers right. I don't know if Amanda can participate because she's been in my class before. She can participate, but I don't know if she can. Okay, you guys ready? Number one. Oh, and I might have said this already. Am I from Louisiana, New York City, or Philadelphia? Louisiana, New York City, or Philadelphia?
You're from New York. No.
Number two, do I like to read fiction or nonfiction?
You look like a non.
Number three, the one subject I just was not good at in school, was it science or Spanish? Number four, in school, did I run track or play basketball?
Basketball.
Number five, this is kind of a long one, so listen carefully. Number five, my grandparents are from all of the following places except one. Which one are they not from? None of them are from this one place. Is it South Carolina, Mississippi, Panama, or Georgia? Again, which one are my grandparents not from? South Carolina, Mississippi, Panama, or Georgia?
In Panama.
Number 6. Do I have a weakness for jewelry or shoes? Jewelry or shoes? Number 7. Do I plan to retire in Florida or Puerto Rico? Number 8 is about music. Do I prefer soft rock or hard rock? Number 9. Do I love to swim or do karate? Number 10. If I did not live in Chicago, would I live in Rhode Island or Washington, D.C.?
I can look. Mm,
Number 11. Was my very first job as a teenager at a train station or an amusement park?
I think I'll use it.
Number 12. Do I have a dog or a cat?
Dog or a cat?
Okay, just a formal question. Number 13. Do I like Heath bars or Mounds bars? Here we're talking about chocolate bars. Heath bars or Mounds? Number 14. How many children do I have who are away at college? 1 or 2?
2?
Number 15. Was I a school principal or a banker? The last question, last but not least, I became a grandmother in September. Did my daughter have a girl or a boy? Oh. Okay. Let's see who got the most right. Share screen. Pull it up. Okay, you guys ready to mark yours right or wrong? Number 1, I am from New York City. Number 2, I prefer nonfiction. Number 3, I was never good at science. Number 4, in school, I ran track. All 4 years of high school and part of college. Number 5, none of my grandparents are from Mississippi. They're from South Carolina, Georgia, and Panama. Number 6, I have a weakness for jewelry.
That's exactly how I knew. I looked at you and I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
yeah, good
really?
necklace. Let me write that down.
I think that shoes are just a nuisance. I just wear them because I have to, but I love jewelry. Yeah, this was a giveaway. Yeah, right. Okay, number 7, we would like to retire in Puerto Rico. We do not like Florida. Number 8, I love, love, love soft rock. Number 9, I love to swim and have never done karate. Number 10, I would live in Rhode Island. I'm not a big fan of Washington, D.C., and Rhode Island is a great little state. Smallest state in the country. My first job was at a train station. It was at Grand Central Station. I know you guys probably have heard of it. It's in the middle of Manhattan. And my job was giving out flyers for a furniture company that was in Grand Central Station. But listen, I thought I was like very well off because I got paid, it was $6.15 an hour when the minimum wage was $3.35. I would, as young people say nowadays, I was balling. Number 12, I have a dog. Her name is Nutmeg. Number 13, I love Heath bars. Can't stand Mounds bars. Can't pay me to eat them. Coconuts. Number 14, I have one child away at college. He's at Pratt in New York City studying film. Next year, this time, I'll probably have 2 children away at school. Number 15, I used to be a school principal, never a baker. Became a grandmother last year, and my daughter had a little boy. So count up how many you got right. Give me a second to do that. There are 16 questions altogether. Oh, that's a good way to report it. Why don't you put it in the chat? 10, okay. 9, 11. Okay, we ate it. Okay.
And then 9 or 10.
They might be the winner. Did everyone report? Hey, you are the winner. And if we were in person, I would give you a candy bar. Oh, Mandy. Actually, you guys did not do bad. There's nobody who got like 5. So a perceptive people, intuitive perhaps. Good job, guys. Thank you for humoring me. And now we will move on to the content. And I wanted to mention to you, that it's fine to be off camera. The burden is a little bit more when you're off camera. I expect everyone to participate. But when you're off camera, I want to know that you're engaged. It's harder to tell. Okay. So we're going to read part of your reading, which is not from this book, but from a handout, a reading that is in D2L. So I'm going to go ahead and read the ELL profiles that are at the beginning of the chapter. Okay. So let me read the preface. An English language learner, ELL, is a student who is in the process of attaining proficiency in English as a new additional language. Notice they say a new additional language, not necessarily a second language, right? And this definition is very good, okay, because it tells us that the student probably does know some English because they're in the process of attaining proficiency. However, it doesn't mean that they do know English. Some people come here with no English, right? But they're in a class with the purpose of learning. Okay? So consider each of the following students, all of whom are officially classified by their schools as ELL. Daniel, one of the lost boys of the Sudan, comes from a rural area where he had little access to public education. His parents were killed in the Sudanese Civil War, and he spent several years in a refugee camp in Kenya before coming to the United States. By the way, this is very common for refugees from the Sudan. He entered school for the first time 2 years ago as a 10th grade high school student in the United States. While he is making good progress in speaking and listening, he struggles greatly with English reading and writing. Okay, this highlights something we always want to keep in mind, which is that there's 4 English language learning domains, right? Speaking, listening, reading, and writing. One domain or 2 of these are considered productive domains, and 2 of them are considered receptive domains. So which ones do you think are productive domains?
Speaking and writing.
I can't say it again.
Speaking and writing.
Speaking and writing. That's right. Oh, let me turn this up. Right, because you're producing language when you're speaking and when you're writing. And then the 2 receptive, of course, are reading and listening. All 4 are important, but it looks like this student, Daniel, is struggling with reading and writing. So 1 receptive and 1 productive. Maria, a 4th grade student, immigrated to the United States from Mexico 3 months ago. She was a top student in her village school and has excellent literacy skills in Spanish, but did not speak any English when she started school in the United States. Yep, a 2nd grade student, was born in the United States. His parents, who immigrated from Vietnam 10 years ago, can only speak a little English. Yep speaks Vietnamese with his parents, and he speaks mostly English with his older brothers and sisters. He cannot read or write Vietnamese. He appears to be fluent in English, yet struggles with the language demands of some academic texts. You see how all of these students look so different, yet they're all considered ELL. Chan Young, a Korean student in the 7th grade, arrived in the United States 1 year ago. Her parents, who speak only a little English, are well educated and own and operate a small market in an ethnically diverse neighborhood. Chan Young lived in the capital city of Seoul and has attended school continuously since she was 4 years old. She is highly literate in Korean, and she excelled in all content areas in her Korean school. She received instruction in English as a foreign language at school and in private English language classes after school. But she had no opportunities to speak English with proficient speakers. Although her reading and writing skills in English are good, Chan Young struggles with speaking and listening. Again, 1 receptive and 1 productive domain. So, can we predict who's going to have the easiest time? Or is that something that is impossible? What do you think?
Impossible kind of.
Are there
I
any?
think they would.
Oh, go ahead, Mandy. Go ahead.
Personally, I think that they would all struggle in one of the fields. They will all have a learning disadvantage. Because my mom is that way too. She's a great writer, but she doesn't speak a drop of English.
Wow, isn't that something? So she's a great writer in English.
Then tell
Yes.
mommy that.
So is it that she didn't have the opportunity really to interact with enough English speakers, native English speakers?
I think it was harder for her to pick up the language rather than the writing.
Mhm. How old was she when she got here?
She was 30.
Okay. So it's significantly more difficult if you arrive after 13, especially if you've had little or no exposure to English or practice with English. So that's one thing we know is that the younger you are, the easier it is to acquire all 4 domains. Usually students, it depends, but speaking and listening sometimes comes more easily, especially with young students. And what I find is that when students taking TESL 399, the clinical course, first enter their Chicago public school classroom, sometimes they call me and say, Miss Francis, I think you placed me in the wrong room. There's no English language learners here. And I say, yes, there are. First of all, there's 6 different levels in the public schools in the United States, right? And level 6 can look like and sound like a native English speaker. But remember the domain. So what the student who called me, or a couple students did that actually, they were listening to the way the students spoke. And the students who were ELLs spoke just like everyone else. So they thought, well, I think Miss Francis made a mistake. But no, it was revealed later that even though their speaking and listening was very strong, their reading and writing wasn't. Okay, so we can make some predictions, especially when it comes to age at the point that they moved to the United States or transitioned into an English-speaking environment.
Right.
That helps us. We also know that if they've been in school already, that helps. And the younger, the better. Even if it's only in their home language, literacy counts. The environment at home counts in terms of what language is used. It doesn't count as some of the other variables, but it does count because that might limit your opportunity to practice, especially when you're young and you're not like going out and hanging out with friends. Okay, so I want us to keep all of these variables in mind. There's actually many more variables, but we always want to look at the whole student. And ELL students look many different ways. Okay, let me make sure I mark. I know you guys came, 2 people came in while we were doing the activity, and I think that was Clarissa, right?
Yeah.
And Arden, it was Arden. Yes. Okay. Okay, let me pull up the PowerPoint again. See if I can find them on the sheet. Okay. Okay. So we already know, because I read the preface to the description of the students, that an ELL is an English language learner. We know now what it means. Student who is in the process of attaining proficiency in English as a new additional language. So we never want to say something like, it's a student who doesn't understand English. It's a student who doesn't know English, right? This is the proper definition. This is the proper definition, sorry. English language learners in the United States are extremely diverse. So let's look at the ways in which they are diverse. They're diverse by race, by ethnicity, by home language, by level of schooling, by socioeconomic status, by parents' level of education. That is an important variable. The more educated the parents, the more of a leg up the student has. Parents' English proficiency and literacy in the home language, and proficiency in English. So these are just some of the ways that English language learners are diverse. Even when we look at a group of students who share the same home language, Spanish is an example. Of course, we would not assume that all the students whose home language is Spanish share the same culture. I don't know what week it is, but coming up, we'll investigate how many countries are Spanish-speaking countries. And it's just incredible. And each of those countries has a different culture, right? Part of that has to do with geography. Part of it has to do with history. And it is very fascinating. Okay, so these are the ways in which English language learners are diverse. And please, if you want to interrupt me and chime in on anything, please do. So in the US, most ELLs are born in the US. I bet you're surprised about that. So students who we've determined to be ELLs, for instance, in the Chicago public school system, most of them are from here, right? But levels of English spoken at home are variable, okay? And if they weren't born here, many of them came at a very young age. Some come more recently. We have middle schoolers and high schoolers, whole classes full who are new arrivals. If any of you are going to be taking the clinicals, I think that high school is a wonderful place to do your clinicals because you see everything that we talk about in 340 and 341. Many of them are relative newcomers, but if they're not newcomers, sometimes they're still struggling with the language because they came late. And you also see a self-consciousness about the language that you don't see in younger children. You remember how carefree you were as a little kid? You didn't care what anyone thought, right? But high schoolers do. Okay. ESL programs are still popular, but it's very important that all teachers be prepared. So there are school districts, increasingly so, that require all of the teachers that they hire to have ESL credentials. If not the endorsement, they expect some coursework. So one school district in our area that does that is Des Plaines. Anyone from Des Plaines?
This plane.
Well, Des Plaines likes to hire, people who have these ESL credentials.
They do it. I was living in this place, but I just moved to Roselle like in January, and I love District 62. They worked with my son, so they were telling me if I finish and my associate, I can go work there. So maybe.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm not surprised because they're very specific about that. So there's
Because
a
as
lot
I
of
told you, I did so many observation on my kid, and then I did my aviation course in the school, but not in my son class. It was like Ogden Community, like just did a contract with them. So it was my luck because it was like really close to my house. So, and then I talked to them, like everybody was there. They were like, just finish and then come back. And I was like, because I had my second son in 2019, I was like, I'm gonna babysit my kid at home for now, and when he's older, I'll go look for a job where you guys at. So they're still looking. I'm going.
I'm not surprised at all because they basically won't hire you unless you have the credentials. So
yes,
of all the pool of people who send their resumes in, most of the people, they don't really look very far if they see that the person doesn't have the coursework. So you
Yeah,
guys are in the
also-
right.
I also told them that I can help them with like Arabic families who are refugees and come and they don't understand like the IEP meetings and stuff, and they were excited about that because I have the
Oh,
Arabic language.
yes.
So
Yeah, in
I
fact,
should give them a call then.
yeah, there are schools in Chicago, one called Bud Long, that's not too far from NEIU, and then Mather. Bud Long is an elementary school, Mather is a high school, and they have interpreters, Arabic interpreters in the classrooms. Yep, wonderful. So what we know for a fact, this is not just theory, this is the law. ELLs are entitled to 1, high quality instruction across all content areas, and 2, high quality language instruction to develop proficiency in English. So it's not enough anymore. This actually used to happen, when I was younger, is that the kid, you have 1 or 2 kids in class who are ELLs, they're pulled out. And this pulling out still happens, but back then they would pull them out and work on something entirely different than is happening in the classroom. So the students would be missing out on important content. So the goal, now we understand that it's important to teach the content, but to teach it in a different way, okay? To teach it in a different way so that ELLs can easily consume it. Okay. Before we delve into principles of learning English, we want to acknowledge, and this is in any field, it's important for us to look critically at our field. There are 2 different ways educators choose to view ELL's impact, the organization of teaching and learning, okay? So educators either take one view of ELL or another view of ELL. And the point of view that they choose is critical. So either they take on a language as a resource orientation, like, oh, you have 2 languages already? Wow, let me think about how that's a resource for you as you learn. But then there are the educators that say, oh gosh, language, these 2 existing languages, what am I going to do? Because they're going to get in the way. So these are 2 pivotal points of view. Fortunately, there are more people now that see language as a resource, but not everyone. Some people see that first language or those first languages as a problem, something that gets in the way. We know for a fact as educators and because of research that that first and second language or just that first language, those are resources and we have to build on those. And actually we also know that students who English is their first language, but at a young age, they also learn Portuguese or any language. Then in school, they decide to take Mandarin. Well, Mandarin is easier for them to learn because they've already learned language. So language is a resource. It builds a foundation and a structure kind of like in your brain that prepares you for new language. Some schools and school districts maintain in what we call assimilationist discourse with respect to ELL. And this kind of discourse devalues the home language and the culture of ELL. Okay? They basically want students to assimilate, to blend in. And in the recent past, pretty much the field of education has been assimilation until maybe the 70s. The idea was to be subtractive In other words, I have this student here who's not speaking English at all. They're new to the school. My goal is to help them to forget their first language and to forget their culture. And we're going to add on this new language and culture. That was the viewpoint. And like I say, there are some who still have that point of view. And that's the kind of discourse they take part in. Other schools and school districts maintain what we call a pluralist discourse. And a pluralist discourse means that they recognize the ELL's home languages and cultures as rich resources for helping ELLs learn English and academic content, right? It's kind of like a fork in the road. And of course, you can see that language as resource orientation and language as problem orientation are very similar to assimilation discourse and pluralist discourse. Okay, let's look at what we call these people who are learning English. Water. It used to be that English language learners were called LEPs. In my lifetime, they were called LEPs, and actually, when you go to look for articles to write your annotated bibliography and literature review, you'll probably see the term LEP because you might be using some older articles. LEP stands for Limited English Proficient. We don't like that term, and the education department got rid of that term a long time ago because it suggests a deficit. And it also suggests that the lack of proficiency is permanent. It doesn't suggest any kind of progression, right? So LEP is a no-no. Yet the term ELL, English Language Learner, does also have its own set of issues. What do you think might be problematic with the term English Language Learner? It's not as obvious as LEP, but what do you think? Why does it get prickly sometimes?
It assumes that the person doesn't know any English.
Right, it could seem that way, right? If you're learning it, then does it mean that you don't know it? And oftentimes that's not the case at all. That's good. Anything else?
I was going to say actually the opposite, that it kind of suggests that they know a little bit and they're just adding on to it.
Okay, because they're in the process, so they must know some English.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. There's probably no ideal term. But here are some possible challenges with the term ELL. And like I said, it's hard to define definitively. But native English speakers are often ELL, right? People who were born in this country are often ELL, and they may be people who are exposed to and using English from the beginning. There may also be people from other countries who are native English speakers. For instance, let me give you an example. Have you ever heard Nigerian English?
I don't think so.
I know you've heard Nigerian English. Well, Nigerian English is strong, it's distinctive. You know it when you hear it, kind of like an Irish accent. Like, I know it as soon as I hear it. Nigerian English is interesting because Nigerians learn English from the beginning. They learn English from the start, just like they learn their tribal language. So it's very rare that a Nigerian kid or adult comes to this country and takes ESL class. However, you do sometimes see them in ESL classes, not because they don't know English, but because their English sounds so different that it's harder to follow. It has to do with the rhythm of the speech. Okay, native English speakers sometimes speak a variety of non-standard English and learn standard English in school. So this is a whole, we're going to be talking about this later in the term. But not everyone speaks like a newscaster. There are varieties of English all over the entire country, and they're all very different. I love to hear these different ways of speaking.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So you said like if somebody like for instance, I was born and raised not here, but I took English since I was a very little girl, and I know how to speak English since I was like 8, 9 years old. I'm sorry, let me just get my kid out of the room.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So, but when I came here, I didn't take any special classes. I just like went there. But like I have members of my family who also knows how to speak and write and read, but they want to improve their understanding or the way they're talking. Is there like somebody should recommend like ELL classes? That's what you're saying?
Yeah. So there are different levels, of course, and we'll be talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get into the higher levels of ESL, you're talking about not really grammar anymore. You're not really talking about vocabulary. You may talk
because we got that covered.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You may be talking about phonology, which has to do with pronunciation.
Okay.
And you may be talking about the nuances of a language. For instance, I know that all of you have used the thesaurus before.
Yes.
And thesauruses are great because when you need to find a synonym, you just, well, now the thesaurus is online. You just pull up the word and find the synonyms. Well, we know that there are shades of differences between synonyms. So like an advanced learner would learn more about like connotations of certain words and the appropriateness for saying something in a certain setting. So that person is also an English language learner, even though they have the vocabulary down pat, and in fact, their vocabulary may be more expansive than a native English speaker, and they know the grammar back and forth. I taught an ESL class once at NEIU many years ago. Most of the students were from China. They knew the grammar because before they came to this country, they had to study the grammar and memorize it. And they learned things that none of us learned until maybe later. However, there were lots of other things that they didn't know, like what I'm talking about with the shades of difference with the language. So you'll see gaps in different places, but I don't know if I would consider you a native speaker. Who was that speaking?
That was me, Aya.
Oh, Aya, yes.
Uh-huh.
You learned at 8, which is early.
Yeah, we let me get a minute away from my family. Yeah, we started like really early, knows the alphabets, and as we grow, we get grammar, as you said, and we read like some Shakespeare stories.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's the thing. But my father was a translator and my mom was an English teacher.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so my dad, when he used to come home, he used to say, "Hi, how was your day today?" So when I was a little kid, I saw my older sister answer him really fast, and I'm like, what they're saying, or they want to talk about something we don't want to understand. My mom and my dad, they speak it in English, so we learned how to use the dictionary And then me and my little brother were the younger in the family. We speak better English than any of them right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually watching a lot of Friends and like English shows and listen to music helped a lot. I used to like cover the translation, the Arabic translation under to try to see if I can understand. And if the word, there's something I don't understand, I look at the words and see which word I didn't get.
Yes.
So
Now,
when,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, so that's how I learned actually. Like people were laughing, like music doesn't teach you, shows doesn't teach you. I was like, no, that's how we taught, because the English we learned in our schools, it was basically grammars, like past,
Right.
present, future.
Not usage.
Yes, it's not how you talk, it's how you just write. And so my mom, because she's an English teacher, she knows how to read and write and listen very well, but she really had a hard time to speak to Americans until she worked. She's a floral designer right now. So until she worked and she interacted with customers and like forced herself to
You
speak.
picked it up.
Yeah, she got better and better. Still, she's working on her language. Like I see her watching videos of how to say some stuff, because she was like, I'm an English teacher. Why I can't speak here? It's really like devastated her when we first got here, like 10 years ago.
Oh.
But step by step, it got better. So,
and that's the thing, like even in countries where English is used quite a bit, sometimes the English that's taught is British English. And even that's different.
Exactly.
So,
it's so different.
We'll be talking about world Englishes.
It's so different. I have my cousin send me a test.
English.
It's like I don't understand it anymore because I've been living here for 10 years and I got used to the grammar and stuff here. I was like, this sentence is wrong. This sentence is added so many words that's not needed. So she was like, okay, then you cannot help me because I didn't get what she was sending me because it's so.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Such an interesting phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with the term language majority students. Those are students who speak the dominant societal language, what we call standard English. There are problems with this term. In some school districts, an ELL's home language is the majority language. This is very common. We have 35 partner schools for the TESL clinicals. And I can think of several off the top of my head where the majority language is not English, okay? So we have to be careful with the words majority and minority because they're very loaded. LMS, language majority student, may be proficient in English, but have not developed in all language learning domains, those 4 domains we talked about. Then there was the term culturally and linguistically diverse students. That did not last. They wanted to use that term in the place of ELLs, but that doesn't work because doesn't that speak to all students? Right? Because if we take a snapshot, of all the students in a given school, they're culturally and linguistically diverse. Right? So in a way, they tried to broaden it too much. Then they pulled it back to ELL. Okay, let me show you this bar chart in the handout here. Page 7. Okay, so here you can see some trends, and I need to get some statistics past 2010, which should be out now because we're in 2021. Okay, here you see in the brown, this is a bar chart where the bars in brown represent English learner growth. We're not talking about the growth in progress of English language learners. We're talking about the growth in population in the US of English language learners. So this is growth. And that's why the y-axis is a percentage axis, right? So take a look. For instance, from 1999 to 2000, the ELO population grew by 40% from the last time it was determined. And then we look at the next year. Wow, it grew by 40, it looks like 43%, right? And we even have 2002 to 2003 where we're nearing 60%. Fast forward to 2008 to 2009, the growth is almost 70%. So just as a reminder, when you see growth of 100%, that means the numbers have doubled. So we're seeing close to numbers that are doubled, not quite, but almost. Now compare that to pre-K to 12th grade growth period. Okay, so that's everybody. So look at the numbers, look at the percentage growth. These numbers are growing, but anemically, right? We see growth by less than 10% year after year. So that tells us that proportionally, we're getting more and more English language learners as compared to the growth in students overall. So that's important to note, and that's why I think everybody, not just early childhood majors, but everyone should be taking these courses. Okay, so let's look at some statistics. And again, this is a little old. I'm gonna have to update these numbers. These numbers are updated like every 10 years. Most ELLs live in the following states. Okay, California has the most. Now, so this is proportion of ELLs to all the other students. California, 28%. Texas, 15%. This goes in order. So these states have the highest population of ELLs. And I'm covering this just so that we all have a foundation and understand the lay of the land. California, 28%. Texas, 15%. Colorado, close to 12%. Florida, close to 9%. Illinois is next at 8.5%. Then Arizona, then New York, then North Carolina. Okay? If you're thinking about where should I teach? They're looking for your credentials in these states. Excuse me. Okay, so here we have the greatest population increases. We're talking about more than a 200% increase of students who are ELL in these states. So these are states that have experienced unexpected growth in ELLs. Like 1 year they hardly have any. The next year they're enrolling lots and lots and lots, and they're not prepared. We're talking about Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, Delaware, South Carolina, and Virginia. Okay? Those are the types of states. These states will usually hire you, give you like a hiring bonus of $10,000 if you'll take the job, because the demand is so tremendous. 1 second, I'm gonna open this door so I can feel the air conditioning. Right? Okay. Okay, the most frequently found ELL language It's Spanish by far, by far. But the other numbers are increasing rapidly, especially like Arabic, Tagalog, Vietnamese. So Vietnamese is second. And that wasn't the case even like a decade before this. So here we have Spanish being the most common, then Vietnamese, then Chinese, Arabic, Hmong, Haitian French, Tagalog, Tagalog, Somali, and Navajo. So this is interesting because people from the Navajo Nation are from this country. Yet and still we have very large numbers of people who don't speak English or who are learning English amongst First Nation people. Okay. This portrayal does not fit every city. So this is an aggregate picture of the whole country. Okay. So I think that for us, Arabic is more common than Vietnamese, for instance. Okay. According to Norton and McKinney, 2008, helping ELLs succeed academically requires helping them adjust to the culture of classroom and school by giving them what we call dominant or privileged ways of knowing and doing. And I talk a lot about children. Some of you may want to teach adults in the future. We may or may not get a chance to look at some ESL books. But I like that activity because there's a wide array of ESL books. Some of them do offer dominant or privileged ways of knowing and doing, and other textbooks, the chapters are what I think are sometimes insulting. So you'll have a chapter about hygiene. Well, just because I come from another country doesn't mean I don't know about hygiene. Tell me about something else that will move me forward in this society. So that's a debate. However, studies show that students who assimilate quickly, too quickly, often have deep conflicts at home, which can result in academic and social difficulties. Okay, so the whole concept of assimilation, it was more popular than it is now because the idea was to kind of make the past disappear. You know, take on English, sound like your friends, not only learn the language, but we want you to sound like your peers. We want you to be as American as possible. And we can debate about what that even means. But studies have shown that when students do this kind of assimilation too quickly, it's not healthy. There are certain cultural expectations at home that are suddenly not met, and there's conflict. But let me make this clear that there will always be that kind of conflict when people come to a new country, the young people are around peers, and they learn different ways of doing. There's always some degree of conflict, but when that assimilation happens too quickly, there's conflict at home, there's even academic failure, social difficulties. Does anyone want to speak on that? Is anyone surprised or find it interesting? Or do you reject that?
It's very interesting and it's very true. Like, as I told you, because I've learned English, my family was supporting of us learning English, but as culture, we're Muslims, there's so many things that different. So I see in younger families who come and they weren't raised there, if you ask them to go do like religious stuff, it's like, no, why would I do that? None of my friends does that. Now my son, he's 7 years old. When I talk to him about, we celebrate actually, I celebrate Christmas with them. I put a tree for him. I do everything that he see outside in the house, and Halloween. I'm not like these families where this is no and wrong, and because we're religious, I don't do that. I don't do. Yeah, because I live here. I have to provide him with everything. Also, I tell him like, this is our Christmas. This is the born of our prophet. This is the we have two like a Christmas you guys have. It's like two celebration every year after we fast, and so I keep telling him this, and he's like, I don't want to learn Arabic stuff. I don't want, nobody celebrate that in my school. Nobody talks about that in my school. Even though when I went to classes in like ECE talking about diversity and how they support all religion and stuff, I've never seen in my kids' school anybody talk about the month we fast or the things that we do.
Right. If a school is going to celebrate and understand diversity, they really have to do it in a serious way.
I sometimes request day off when I have a special religion, something. I request one day for, it's like we have 3 days and 4 days. I just request one day each time. So I want him to feel the feeling as we used to be when we went back
so
home.
It sounds like you don't want him to assimilate in the ways that I was talking about, or to do it very gradually.
Yeah, I just want to teach him about it, so I don't feel guilty. I didn't teach him or anything. And at the same time, because I have some like Arabic people telling me, why would you put a tree? Why would you celebrate Christmas? We are not. This is not right. I'm like no, it's the birth of a prophet. We believe in everything, and we are supportive of everything. And I want my son to see whatever is outside is inside the house.
That is so interesting.
Plus the things that we do as Muslims, like we pray, we read the holy.
So you're not being subtractive. In other words, you're not getting rid of what already existed. You're just being additive. And I think someone else wanted to make a comment. Who was that?
I'm Palestinian as well, and I'm a Muslim. So for me personally, it wasn't like our mom is very religious, so she's like, you're not supposed to celebrate Halloween. It's the devil's holiday and stuff like that. So
I've heard that a lot.
We're like, no, we just like go out trick-or-treating. It's just for the candy. You don't do it for the candy.
Yes, and then, it's for fun. It's not. We're not celebrating the devil or anything. That's what I usually tell. I have a lot of Arabic friends. They tell me, "Oh, haram, and you shouldn't do that." And I'm like, "You guys need to calm down. I'm not. I'm just making my kid enjoy the candy. It's a candy day."
So, as a person who has to kind of fit in with American society, you kind of have to like fit in like with both your own culture and America's culture, because if you don't like try to fit in, they're like, what are you doing? Like, who are you? Why are you?
Right. I completely, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
I have a friend whose parents are originally from Mexico, but the parents came at a young age, and she's older than me. She's in her late 50s. And she has two sisters, and they were raised in Chicago. The parents purposely never taught them Spanish. Never. She doesn't know a word of Spanish. And they purposely never dressed them in red, pink, or frills, because they thought was too, they thought that was too Mexican, too Latina. And to this day,
that's crazy.
My friend resents that because she feels like she was robbed. I heard a man trying to chime in just now. Who was that?
That was me.
Okay, you were. So what do you want to say about that, Manny?
So basically, that's like a really heavy tone of the culture in Mexico too. Like sometimes women are allowed to wear different colors, different frills. At least from where I am, say. parents want them to focus on school and stuff like that. And yeah. Now, for the topic myself, I consider myself lucky because my parents didn't hold anything to us. They actually gave us the freedom. They're like, you guys are old enough. If you want to believe in religion, you can believe in religion. We're not going to force it on you. They were like, we want you here to learn. We don't care if you're, religious or not. We just want you to learn English. We came here.
So you were able
have a
to
better
make.
future.
So you were able to maintain your culture and add on the existing culture.
Precisely. Without, so in a way, complete assimilation, but also in a way where my parents were like, don't forget your roots because you have very beautiful roots, and don't forget where you came from.
And, not even to blame that generation because, like, I guess your parents are probably closer to my generation, but the generation that came before me, they didn't like come up with this idea on their own to make their kids assimilate quickly. This message was coming from American government. There were commercials on the radio. Yes, about the importance of assimilating your child quickly, the importance of getting rid of the culture that existed. That's the way things were.
I just want to add one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. When I was taking ACE classes, that's why I'm kept on celebrating other holidays and other stuff here because the teacher mentioned the story about a very religious Jewish family that when their parent, the kid parent asked the teacher when there is a celebration of Christmas or whatever stuff they like, not as like Jewish religion stuff, they ask their kid to be out of the classroom. So the kid goes to the principal office to sit for like an hour or something while his friends get Christmas gifts and stuff. And she said the kid got really sad when he came back and said all his friends are happy and celebrating stuff and he didn't get any gift. So he was left out. So
that
she was
must
like,
be so hard.
Yeah, so she was asking me like, who had different religion? What do you guys think about it? So I was like, I'm not Christian, and I buy gifts for my kid on Christmas. I put it next to like the Christmas tree, and I do everything for him, and I tell him about Santa, and I even tell him about the birth of Christ, and I don't want him to be too left out or feel the need that he really wants to do that, so he will. Doesn't listen to me anymore when I tell him about my religion.
Right. Yep. You don't want him to reject all that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. As a person, I don't think you would want your child to drift away from your culture. It's what makes us who we are. It's as our parents like maybe struggle to come into the United States, they probably want us to stay within our culture, which is why it's so maybe every so often or every year we go back to our homeland and just get more of what.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, we do the same thing. It's just like because of COVID, we couldn't go this year, but that's what we do. I pray, I read Quran in front of him all the time. I teach him, I say the verse of Quran to him at night so he can understand. I explain things. I talk to him a lot at home about this, but at the same time, when he comes and he's like, the school teacher teaches about this. We did the Hanukkah like coloring book today, or the paper I've seen like during the Hanukkah, and I was like, oh, nice, you learned a new thing about new religion.
So they do Hanukkah, but they don't do the Muslim holiday.
Yes, I noticed that.
I by it. Like,
yeah, but I have nobody to tell about this.
Religions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made about, like keeping that stuff out of school or either trying to include everything. Otherwise, people do feel left out.
Yeah, in grade school, my geography teacher, we were like learning about like not like we were learning the map of the world, okay? And they knew I was like the only Middle Eastern person throughout the whole school. So I went to a very like white dominant elementary school, and we were like, my family was like the only Palestinian family there.
Wow.
So they were obviously wanting to know like a whole bunch of questions about us, like why do we wear hijab and like
Right.
why don't you eat pork and all this other stuff. So they're like why don't you celebrate Christmas and all this kind of things. So it's like being able to open up to like other cultures, that's like important, but not being able to like learn about it from like other people. So if I wasn't there, my class probably would not have known
I was
anything.
just gonna say that.
Yes. So like they were like very confused of all these questions, and they're like, so this is why you do that, and this is why you do that. So now every time they see like a Middle Eastern person, they're like, oh, this is what they do and why they do it. So I think it's important for us to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very open to other people's religions, no matter what.
Mhm, mhm. And to be proactive as teachers, because like you said, if you had not been enrolled in that class, the teacher may not have touched the content, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that too when we
Yeah,
plan our curriculum.
Yeah, I was very into reading back then. Still am though, but I was
Okay.
reading a book and she was like asking me questions, and then she would wanted me to get up to the front of the class and be like very, like talkative about like the whole book and like why we do what we do. So I was like the teacher for the class on my religion on the aspect.
Did that feel good or did it feel like a burden?
It honestly felt really nice to be able to speak up.
Good. That's
That-
wonderful.
Yeah.
I think we'll end on that note. That's a wonderful note to end on. And then we will continue this PowerPoint next time. Please be checking your email. I'm the type of instructor who sends emails when you least expect it. Okay? Any questions before we end?
No, thank you.
I have one.
Oh, okay. Evelyn? Oh, that's right, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Everything will be, so next week is asynchronous, which means we don't meet on Zoom next week. On Sunday, you will get an email from me. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only email you get. For instance, if you get an email from me on Saturday, it may or may not be, probably won't be the package for next week. I generally send it on Sunday, and that outlines everything you need to do for the week, but we won't meet on Zoom at all. Okay.
We're gonna have like a homework.
Well,
Sorry.
it's not exactly a homework. You'll be doing.
It's a reading or something because I haven't
Yeah,
received my book
you
yet.
might
And I'm still waiting
well,
for it.
They're still reading, so you want to stick to the syllabus and the reading on the syllabus. There may be an additional reading. It wouldn't be long though for next week, and then discussion board work or whatever it is, watching videos, giving feedback. But I'll let you know what it is, and if there's any confusion about it once you get it, just let me know, okay? Okay. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.